You know what time of year it is? Soup season. Let's get making it. I am going to make the simplest soup recipe. It literally is a dump and pour, especially if you do like we did here and use taco meat that we had left over from the night before. Josh had made tacos and he didn't eat them all, and so we, of course, used that for this taco soup recipe. So the first thing I do is get my crock pot out, put my taco meat in it. You can make taco meat if you need to. Add a can of drained sweet corn, a can of tomatoes and diced chilies. It can be any brand, any spice that you'd like. And then I do about a teaspoon of coarse ground salt, a couple dashes of cayenne pepper. I like the organic one because I like the aesthetics of the jar. It can be any brand. A couple dashes of smoked paprika. This is not the organic one because Josh did the grocery shopping this day. And then what I call the secret ingredient, ranch dressing seasoning mix. Now, if you did not know this, 1 packet of ranch dressing seasoning mix is equivalent to 1 lid full if you buy it in the jar like I do. It's much cheaper to buy the ranch dressing mix in the jar like that. Then you add a can of rinsed and drained black beans and a packet of taco seasoning and about 3 cups of water, or you can use beef broth. Now, if you're going to leave it on all day long, I suggest you add extra liquid so it doesn't dry out. Let me take a second right here to introduce myself. My name is Kayla. I'm a busy homeschooling mama of 2. Hannah, who is 10, and Jana, who is 5. We are busy all of the time. On this channel, you will see day in the lives, tips and tricks on cleaning your house, inspiration and motivation, and decoration, and all things homemaking and lifestyle. If you like videos like this, please hit that like button and go over and subscribe to my channel. I would love to have you. You know what goes great with taco soup on a cold day? Homemade bread. And this bread recipe could not be any easier. It is simply 3 cups of flour. Now, you see here I'm using a spoon to put my flour into my measuring cup. I think I learned that from the Barefoot Contessa. I love that show. It is a very bougie Hamptons style cooking show, but I love it. And I'm just using the flat side of the spoon, the handle, to level the flour off. But I'm going to put 3 cups of flour in my bowl first. You use the spoon to put it in your measuring cup to keep from packing the flour in your measuring cup, because when you pack the flour in your measuring cup, you get more flour in your recipe than you actually need. And that can make for dense, tough bread. Now you can't see really what I'm doing right here, but I'm using my mortar and pestle to grind up some salt. You can use other salt. I just personally like that coarse ground salt, and I'll just ground it up, and then I'll add a teaspoon of that salt to my flour. After this, I'm going to add 1 packet of Rapid Rise instant yeast. It's about 2 1/4 teaspoons. My recipe actually calls for 2 teaspoons, but I always just add the whole packet to make sure that there's plenty of yeast that can feed off of the flour to make your bread grow. Then I'm just going to use my spoon to mix it all together, and I'll add the warm water to the flour mixture and stir that together until it makes a very sticky mass. Don't overwork your dough. It does not have to be perfect. In fact, it should not be perfect. It's about 1.5 cups of water, and it should be warm to the touch but not burn your hands or your inner wrist. That's the easiest way to tell without getting a thermometer out, whether your water is warm enough or too hot. If you're having a hard time following along with my recipes, don't worry. I plan on putting them down in the description box for you to write down for yourself. After the dough comes together, you should see all of the dry flour is finally getting all glooped into that one ball. Then you're going to take a dish towel or plastic wrap and lay it over the top of your bowl. Lay your plastic wrap down really loosely and then put your dish towel over the top of that and set it in a warm place to rise for about 2 hours or until it's doubled in size. Oh look, my sister was calling me. I'm just going to drop a towel over it right here and move it over to my stove because that is probably the warmest place in our house at the time. Okay, it's been about 2 hours, so I'm just going to come over here, take off my rings and my watch, and I'll put them in this little dish that we got at a cute little store in Branson. And then this is actually a 2 tablespoon measure, but I'm just going to use about half, maybe a little more than half of that, and sprinkle it on the countertop, and I'll leave the rest sitting right there on my spoon rest in case I need it. And then I'll grab my dough, remove the towel and the plastic wrap, and see how big it's gotten. And you can see all of the bubbles, and like when I touch it, how sticky it is. That's what it should look like. And when you're dumping it out, which you can't see because of my head, it'll start like tearing apart, looking more and more like kind of like a spider web. It should look like that. The whole point of this whole entire process right here is to deflate the bread. After you get it on your flour, you may or may not need a little extra flour on top of your dough. I needed a little extra because mine was so sticky. So I'm just going to sprinkle the top with the rest of the flour. And then working from the outside, just fold it over itself, just over and over. Not a ton of times, just a few. Now, while I am doing this, I have my oven preheating and my Dutch oven is inside there. I put my Dutch oven in the oven while it was cold and turned it on to 450, and it is warming inside the oven while the oven is warming up. There's nothing inside my Dutch oven. It's just the Dutch oven itself, lid and all, in the oven. So I'm going to grab a sheet of parchment paper after I wash my hands, of course, and I'm going to transfer my dough from the counter to the parchment paper. Ding ding, warning, make sure that you are using parchment paper or baking paper. Do not use wax paper. Regardless of what anyone tells you, wax paper should not be baked on. The wax will melt, it will smoke, and it will ruin whatever you are baking. I'm just going to reapply the lid here and stick the bread, Dutch oven and all, back in the oven at 450 degrees for about 30 minutes covered, and then we'll take the lid off and it'll bake an additional 10 to 12 minutes to brown the tops. We'll be back in a minute. Okay, here we are. We're back. And look at that bread. Isn't it pretty? It looks so good. And let me tell you, it smelled wonderful. Now I'm just going to take the whole parchment paper out. Your Dutch oven will be very, very, very hot. Dutch ovens conduct a ton of heat, and that's why this works so well. This bread is perfect for soups. It is perfect for bread bowls. It's the perfect crusty loaf of bread for anything cozy. Lots of crunchy, crusty bits. This bread is so good. Soft and pillowy, and you can see here lots of holes for air and pockets. So good. The crust is springy but crispy. It has a nice chew to it. It's the best bread. There you have it. A cozy, hearty meal for those cold days. That's super simple. Thanks for watching. God bless.